Doug, do you just feel ashamed with your own front and backyard every time you see Augusta National? Because I sure do. I mean, it's like you look at your yard and it's just like, oh, this is never going to measure up, is it?
Listen, Ty, it never gets old. I've been going over to Augusta for many years now, and it's something that I really look forward to. In fact, over the years, I've covered a lot of things, whether it's the national championship game and basketball, football, Super Bowl, you name it, Indy 500, Kentucky Derby. I can go on and on, but the one thing that I look forward to the most is the week at Augusta National. It is, and you've heard it before. People say it's a slice of golf heaven, and it is. And it's incredible when you see all these old champions like Jack and Gary Player, they come back. But when you have an ending, like you did yesterday, it was. And in my mind, Ty, listen, and the symmetry at the Masters is interesting. April 13th, 1986, Jack with maybe the greatest win ever at 46. And then April 13th, 1997, Tiger wins his first green jacket. And then yesterday, April 13th, 2025, Rory completes the Grand Slam. So in my mind, I don't know if you agree or disagree, those are the three greatest Masters of all time.
Well, Doug, I was going to ask you about that from a guy that's covered the event for quite some time. I was also looking up this morning. So today was I guess 23 years ago, Tiger won back-to-back Masters.
Yeah.
Today, 2019, 6 years ago, when he won the 83rd Masters tournament. So it's not. Are we not just living in a moment? Was that as good as it gets when it came to it? Because sometimes we get caught up in just what just happened, what we just saw. Based on what you just said, this needs to go down the storybooks.
Oh, there's no question. Now I was there in 19, and it's interesting, Ty. And listen, I'm a golf guy, right? And I hope your audience, sometimes they're like, oh, golf. But listen, when you're around Tiger, when he came back in 2018, and won the Tour Championship, this was after he'd had the back surgery, had not won anything since the U.S. Open in 2008. And I thought at that time, and I was walking inside the ropes describing the shots, that was the greatest comeback I'd ever seen. It was amazing as people spilled out onto the fairways there as he was walking up the 72nd hole at East Lake in Atlanta. And then the next year, you mentioned 2019 Masters, and he was going to have to come from behind on Sunday, and people were going to have to help. And Francesco Molinari, who was the best player in the world at the time, who was playing great, plunks it in the water at number 12. Brooks Koepka plunks it in the water at number 12. Tony Finau, Dustin Johnson, they all go in the water, and then suddenly it's like, oh, my goodness, Tiger's got a chance, and then Patrick Cantlay can't birdie 18, and Tiger gets number 5. And that was amazing to me. And that wasn't just the greatest comeback in golf history. That was the greatest comeback in sports history. I don't think there's any question considering what he'd gone through physically. And then suddenly we go through a few years of some interesting Masters wins. I mean, they're always great, but what Rory pulled off yesterday, I mean, listen, he had 4 double bogeys for the week. Nobody in Masters history has ever overcome giving back 8 shots. And when he hit in the water at 13, I thought, it's over. This is ridiculous. He's given it away. And then he comes back with a great shot at 15. Comes back with this spectacular shot at 17 that Jim Nance described as maybe the greatest shot he's ever hit. And then with a wedge in his hand, plunks it in the bunker on the 72nd hole, can't get up and down. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then he comes back and wins in a playoff. I mean, Ty, come on. It just doesn't get any better. And then when you watch the raw emotion of this guy who wanted the Masters more than anything. Grand Slam was great. He's part of history, but he wanted the green jacket. And for 7 minutes after Jim Nance said, hey, it's the masterpiece that Rory wanted, no talk from the announcers for 7 minutes. We just saw that raw emotion, crying, hugging, kissing, screaming, looking up in the sky. I mean, it was just it's what you live for as a sports fan. And I think the Masters attracts people that aren't necessarily the golf fan. It's the Masters. And I think they saw that yesterday, how important it was to a guy who's 35 years old. And Ty, I don't know what you think, but I think on the Mount Rushmore of golf, I mean, you got to put Jack, you got to put Tiger, you got to put Rory up there now, right?
Because he's got
right?
4 or 5 now. It's at 5?
He's got 5.
Okay.
And he has 29 wins, 5 majors. But, and listen, the Grand Slam, as golf historians, Gene Sarazen, he completed the Grand Slam in 1935, second Masters. At the time, there's no such thing as a Grand Slam. It was just this nice little tournament in Augusta, Georgia that he wins, with all due respect to the Squire, Gene Sarazen. And then Ben Hogan at 53, he won the Open Championship, played in only once. It was too expensive to go over by boat, and he goes over and wins, comes back, ticker tape parade. But again, nobody was saying, hey, this guy won the Grand Slam, because the PGA Championship wasn't considered a major at the time. And then suddenly Arnold Palmer says, you know what? He comes up, he coins the phrase, Grand Slam ought to be the 4 professional majors, and everybody's chasing him. Gary Player, in the modern era, Gary Player, Jack Tiger, and now Rory. So in my mind, Rory has accomplished this amazing feat. And to think the PGA Tour season is only a quarter finished. We have 3 quarters to go, 3 majors to go, and Rory has 3 wins, including the Masters.
And
pretty spectacular.
And he's, 36, I think? So he's
35 years old.
Okay, 35. So he's a youngie. Take advantage of that. Doug Bell's our guest, PGA Tour Radio, CBS Sports, ESPN. And one of the reasons I also wanted to have you on, Doug, is not just to talk golf. I know you're just joking about being a golf guy, but how about this stuff in Knoxville, Tennessee this weekend? I know you've got SEC roots, and Nico Iamaleava decides, hey, if I don't get paid, I'm ditching. And Tennessee's like, all right, we'll call your bluff. Now he's gone. Don't know where he's going to end up. But what did you make of the biggest college sports story out of Knoxville this weekend?
Well, I was shocked and flabbergasted initially, and then as I watched golf and thought about it, I said, why am I shocked? Because all this craziness is happening in college sports. I did hear the name now. They're calling him Nico Iamaleava, which I thought was pretty funny, right? This young guy was making $2.4. He'd already agreed to $2.4 million for the upcoming season. I mean, think about that. He was ranked last year in the SEC as the 7th most efficient passer in the toughest conference in America. I mean, he was middle of the pack, and didn't really. And there were 3 games, conference games, where he never threw a touchdown pass. So I mean, he's not an upper echelon guy. But he has a team, which a lot of these top guys, at least they consider themselves top guys, which includes an agent that you're allowed to sign with, his dad, who's an integral part of what this young man hopes to accomplish. And they all got together. A business decision was, we're not happy with $2.4 million. We want $4 million. We hear Carson Beck, who was at Georgia and now at Miami, is going to make $4 million. And we think we belong in that
same category. Which is also a joke, by the way, but continue.
Which is crazy, right? And so instead of negotiating, and I don't know what went on. We don't know what went on. Handshake agreement, a promise was made, who knows? But instead of negotiating, as the transfer portal opens up, they blackmailed Tennessee. My goodness, he just didn't show up for practice. I'm not going to be there for the spring game. And good luck in the transfer portal, because we actually have people that are calling us now. And so Tennessee did the right thing and just said, but I will say this, Ty, I think Tennessee, they did that knowing that it was a possibility. And I think when the transfer portal officially opens, I think they're going to have their quarterback. I don't think they're going to go with what they have.
I was going to say, why would you not want to play for Josh Heupel? You get to fling it all over the yard. You're going to have a good defense behind you, a good running game. I mean,
absolutely.
If I was a QB, I'd look at Tennessee. And I'm an Arkansas guy, Doug.
Well, what's interesting about Tennessee, too, and Josh, did at Oklahoma, ran into some trouble with Bob Stoops, which is, you ought to go back and read some of those stories, because that broke his heart. But anyway, goes to Central Florida and does it up there. And he runs, he spreads the field more than anybody. I mean, those wide receivers are right on the edge of the sideline. And if you're an accurate passer, which Nico was not, but if you're an accurate passer, I mean, you're going to have wide open receivers all day. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're right on. I mean, why? I mean, I understand he's trying to get more money, but why would you leave a situation where obviously it was going to improve your stock ahead in the future? But he chose not to. And again, I just harken back to, there's no rules and regulations. These top guys sign with agents, just like professional players. And the agent wants to get paid. And so you get with a dad who wants to make some money too, and, they're making decisions for a young guy, and they put him in a tough spot. So I'll be interested to see where he ends up the story I read is that they contacted USC and Lincoln Riley. They're not interested, especially at that price tag. So we'll see. It's crazy, right? And unfortunately, I think we've opened the Pandora's box. You probably talked about it on your show.
Yeah.
And I hope this is not a domino theory where suddenly things are starting to fall where young man will hold out before a big game.
Oh, my gosh.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Well,
yeah, you can see that happening, right?
Yeah. Okay, I want to say, Doug, and this is just this was just wild speculation. I don't know if this was actually accurate or not, but I think it was the Clemson-Alabama 2017 National Championship where there were rumors kind of swirling about that the players as collectively as a whole were going to hold out until revenue sharing came. Now, it's coming now, but it's stuff like that. It's like the doomsday scenario. Jim Nagy, I forget how you say it, the former Senior Bowl director, he got asked about it. He's the new GM in Oklahoma, and that's what he described it as. So Nico, in my opinion, will not be the last one that this happens with. You mentioned Tennessee spring game, which happened this weekend in Knoxville. Josh Heupel addresses things after. Arkansas has their upcoming spring game this weekend. I know you spent 40 years in Alabama, you got Florida roots, and you just know SEC. What are your thoughts, Doug, on Arkansas, where Sam Pittman is? I know, honestly, football's taking a back seat to Cal's basketball team, number one baseball team in the country.
Okay.
But your thoughts on Arkansas right now heading into year two with Petrino and just what they have ahead of them?
Well, it's interesting, and I got to tell you this real quick because back when I was doing Alabama games, one of our first games, this was back before the SEC network, and I was the play-by-play guy for the first game for Arkansas on the Southeastern Conference when Alabama came to Arkansas.
Wow.
And, yeah, it was great. And I'll tell you a funny story because at one point coming back in the third quarter, the guy in my ear, my producer, says, "Hey, Doug, when we come back from commercial, we're going to show you a shot of this guy. He's the governor of Arkansas, and he's going to be running for president." And I said, "Oh." I said, "Okay." I said, "Let me get my pen. Who is this?" And they said, "Bill Clinton." I said, "Okay. All right, sounds good." We come back, and, they show the shot of Governor Clinton, and, I told the story. Little did I know at the time he'd be a two-term president. I mean, my goodness. And then, of course, Alabama went on to win that game pretty handily, by the way.
Yeah.
But that was welcome to the SEC for Arkansas. But anyway, that was a long time ago. And then prior to the SEC network, I was doing games with Chris Doering.
Yeah.
And we actually met with Coach Petrino. We would meet with the head coach when Coach Petrino really had it going at Arkansas. And to hear Doering, who played for Steve Spurrier, talk for an hour and a half with Coach Petrino. They were breaking down offense, and Petrino was asking questions about the Spurrier fun and gun, and Doering. It was, and I was a fly on the wall. I just sat back and I said, "Wow, this is pretty cool," because Doering obviously knows his stuff, and Coach Petrino, I think offensively is a savant. I think he's a guy who obviously his whole life has been offensive football. And to answer your question, that was a long answer, but I think now with him back again with a quarterback for the second year, I think things will improve. Hopefully, Coach Pittman is an all offensive line guy, and I know they went to the portal and got some guys, some big guys too. From what I understand, some of these guys, these transfers, one kid's like 6'8", 350, and we'll see it. We'll see if they can play.
McCoy, Doug.
Can't wait to see him. But they got to get better offensive line play. They got to protect the quarterback, and we'll see what happens. I think Coach Pittman, I love him as you do. He's just an old football coach, and I go way back, and I love sitting down and talking to men like that who've their whole lives are college football. And I know Georgia misses him because he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. So, and I think it's a big year for him and Arkansas. So, and the schedule. Ty, how cool is it that Notre Dame's coming to town, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be phenomenal. And then, of course, Auburn comes to town. Auburn should be better. I live in Alabama, by the way. And then, of course, you have your typical road games. At Ole Miss should be good. Tennessee, well, we've talked about them, LSU, and Texas. So, again, the schedule, it's kind of like Florida. How does Arkansas and Florida get the toughest schedule every year? Why is that? Does the conference office have something against Arkansas and Florida? I'm just saying.
I know your
schedule's brutal.
I know your former colleague Chris Dorian. I've heard him say the same thing when it comes to the Gators.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brutal. So I hope Arkansas. Listen, I think I really do have a great deal of respect for Coach Pittman, and I think he's done a solid job amidst tough circumstances, really tough conference, and this portal. I mean, they steal some Arkansas's best players. These kids enter the portal and can't blame them. It's tough to sustain success when you're really trying to battle in the best conference. And I think Coach Petrino is now comfortable being the OC. And again, he's he's in the upper tier in my mind of play callers, even though he's been around a long time. And I think he's a guy who's open to suggestions. He doesn't like, this isn't the way we used to do it 15 years ago. I think he's a guy who appreciates the modern game. So I don't know. I think the jury is out in Arkansas. I think it's going to be a tough season. Hopefully they'll win those home games. And I'm looking at Florida too. Florida's got the quarterback. I think that's the key, Ty, as you know, and your listeners know. You got to have the quarterback, and I think you guys have the quarterback, and you got to protect him. And I think that's the big question for Arkansas. And obviously, you're bringing in some receivers. I mean, hopefully they'll be good. It's an offensive game now. It really is. But you got to have those guys up front on both sides, by the way.
Yeah, and they got to reload on the defensive line after losing Landon Jackson to the draft. Well, Doug, we appreciate your time. First time appearing on the Morning Rush. You killed it.
Yeah.
Brett Norsworthy, Pat Smith had great things to say about you, so we appreciate you joining us with us this morning.
Yeah, Ty, anytime. And sorry for the hesitation at the beginning, but I thought you were still doing the grass commercial. I thought Ty's got a sponsor here, so I didn't know what to say. So,
you're good.
No problem.
You're good, brother.
All right, bud.
All right, that's Doug Bell again. PGA Tour Radio, CBS Sports, ESPN has called games over the years. Apparently the Arkansas game back in 1992, which was a cool story. All right, we continue on here on a Hot Take Monday, brought to you by Wheels RV. They just had their NWA RV show and outdoor party this past weekend. I know Chris Lee and their team excited to see you 5 miles west off exit 72 in Springdale.